again. I am the Energy Reader. This is Tara. She is a medium, and she has been for quite some time. She's also in one of my classes as a student, and we also have started a small nonprofit called Find Me for Forensic Investigations, which is dealing with, at the moment, missing people and cold cases. And so we have 3 cases that we're working with currently. One is with the family, one is with, or 2 are with families, and then 1 is with law enforcement. We do prefer to work with law enforcement because they often have information that the family doesn't have, which is something that we need in order to validate the evidence that's coming through. Obviously, if you're doing a missing person or a cold case, there is some information that you aren't going to know. And so without giving a total class on how we do it or why we do it, or our methods, if you will, it's similar to the celebrity. So if you can't at least get a baseline of evidence, then everything that you say is suspect, right? And so, for example, I was watching the Beliski experience on TikTok, and she was claiming that she, quote, talked to Aaron Carter, who died not too long ago, and this is how she saw them, and she claimed that she was doing it for the family. But in my opinion, she's completely full of hot air, because we would have seen a testimonial from the family. We would have seen a snippet of the reading. There's no way that she does a reading like that she doesn't get every bit of mileage out of it that she possibly can, and or upload it to YouTube. And so unfortunately, you have a lot of people on TikTok saying that they're, quote, reading celebrities, but unless they're doing it for the family or for someone that actually knows the celebrity, there's no way to validate that information other than the internet.
Right. And that's where, and that's where we, starting this not-for-profit, working with law enforcement, working with the family, and people that know information, that's their sole job, is to be the holder of the information we bring through as psychic mediums, connecting with the victim and or the missing person. And we deliver that information to someone who could potentially validate it. Right.
Exactly. Right. And there's a few next steps to that, but honestly, we don't want to give away the store, right?
No.
You can take a class. But there's a few next steps to that. But I would say, all right, so let's hold on for a second. So this is a series on Let's Talk About It. And we talk about things that are either hot buttons in the spiritual community and or how would you put that? Drama. Kind of.
Drama. Drama. So the next big hot button really is those third-party readings, right? The big to-do about who you're given a permission slip to read. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Right, absolutely. So this is one of the things that, if you watch my TikTok videos, I was dragged when I first got to TikTok because, quote, I don't believe that we cannot read third parties. In my opinion, if you're reading the energy of a situation, it would be impossible to do a good job without bringing in all the energies of the situation. It's kind of like talking to that one person who constantly tells you their side of the story, and that's it. They never tell you the other person's side of the story. So if you're only reading one person's energy, you're only getting their side of the story. So I brought up earlier, that on Facebook especially, it's very much a hot button, but also on TikTok, there's these people that have deemed themselves gatekeepers. And it's even called gatekeeping. And they decide that you cannot, quote, read someone who hasn't given you permission to read them. Well, obviously you can and you do. That's what we do when we do forensic investigations. It's what we do when we do remote viewing. It's what we do. Technically, it's kind of what we do, right? Now, there is psychic spying, which is, nobody has the time for that. We don't agree with that, right? There's no reason to go into somebody's private life just willy-nilly.
But don't you think that people unconsciously do that every day, right?
Yeah,
you want to understand how somebody is feeling, and so you tap into their energy, not knowing that they are actually really tapping into that person's energy. Just even the intention of thought, right? If you think a negative thought and that could impact that person, that energy, it has weight and merit. And so, or I believe that it does.
No,
So
that's a great point.
I
That's a
think
great point.
that people do it all the time unknowingly.
Right.
And so when you can, putting some intention behind that, there's some power in that, but
there is some
like you
power in
said,
it. And so that's where the discernment and the maturity comes in.
right.
A lot of times it's kind of like when someone pops into our head, and I've said this about mediumship for years. I think when we think of people who have passed over, it's because they're thinking of us. Yeah. So, you could say that on a friendship basis. There are many times when I've given Matan a call or a text and he was like, I was just thinking about you. How many times has that happened in your life when somebody's like, I knew you were going to call? And it's because
every day.
And I think it's because the energy communicates regardless of intention. So energy can communicate on its own, if you will. And so one of the reasons I ended up, quote, getting dragged and called unethical and a piece of shit and blah, 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 was because I said, I will absolutely read the people in the situation. So let's say you come to me as a mother and you're worried about your child. That child is in your life. Now, let's say you come to me and you're worried about your sister's second cousin's husband. Is he cheating? All right, that's none of your business. It doesn't affect you. I get that one. Totally get it. But if you were
it's
to
still
ask,
a judgment value based upon your own moral beliefs.
It kind of is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, do you have a good reason for asking? Like, is this guy dangerous? Like, that's like someone who said, like, that would be like going through your neighbor's medicine cabinet. Well, do you think your neighbor stole medicine out of your medicine cabinet? Then you have a reason to go through their medicine. Like and we can reason out a lot of different things. But the gist of it is, I think it's unethical to not read the energy of the entire situation.
To get that rounded perspective, I feel like if the energy is presenting itself, that it's available to you to read, because we talked about this in an earlier video about we have the ability to choose, what energies are available to us, and what aren't. And
no, good point. Right. And I think we also have the mental discipline to do it that way. But I remember doing a reading for this gal. I was down in Pueblo. It was a house party. She's sitting across from me. I'm doing the cards. And I was like, immediately, I was like, your husband's not upstairs, is he? She's like, no, my husband's at home. I'm like, well, your husband's here. He is butting in on her reading. His energy was like, so I was like, would you consider him a kind of a pushy person who doesn't have good boundaries? She's like, oh my God, yes. And his energy had literally, because number one, he knew we were talking about him. Okay.
Yeah.
But then his energy came in and I was like, you need to butt out. Like, I'm pushing his energy out of her reading. That's how much their energies were intertwined, and it wasn't healthy at this point. Right. And so to me, if you read energy, you don't really necessarily always have a choice if it comes in or if it doesn't come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'd say it's available, right?
Excuse me. Goodness. Absolutely. So anyways, this was the group that let's see, it was Pam Richards wrote a book, and she has a group on Facebook, and I'll just call her out because, she cut me off. I actually left the group because she cut off my ability to comment, which is nothing but censorship, even though two other people had come at me and I wanted to talk about it. Right. And so they came at me, they said they were extremely rude to me, but she cut me off from commenting. So obviously I leave those kind of groups. So I guess I didn't get kicked out per se, but I've gotten kicked out of a few. Anyway, so this other person in a different Facebook group says, can I ask something related to tarot readers? Do you think it is immoral to read for a third party? And these questions go on Facebook and TikTok like all the time. And I'm sure probably Insta and forums and blah, blah. She goes on to say, like, if someone asks you to read if their boyfriend cheats on her, do you read? Someone in another group judged me because I read about adultery to a third party. Oh, but you are been nonsensical. Serious actors don't do that. Oh, so that's their comment to her. I hope this post can be approved. I will delete after answers. And she actually did too. And then, so one of them says, some people say it violates their own personal code of ethics to spy on a third party. This other one says, yes, I think it's immoral. And also, you can't read cards for anybody other than the querent, which is the sitter, for anyone who doesn't know. My response to that was, that's like listening to one side of the story and thinking you have all the facts. This other one says, personally, I don't do it for a couple of reasons. It's not very moral to pry into others without their permission. Second, as they've not invited me into their energy, I feel the reading will be less accurate, and perhaps most importantly, the good of the client. What benefit is it for them to know the info? Then I come back and I was like, what benefit is it to know if your spouse is cheating on you? Like, I feel like that's a benefit. Anyway, it goes up. Hold on. Anyway, so I love this one because I'm passionate about the fact that these are made up rules. This other gal, I wouldn't read for anyone that didn't consent. I might read for someone in a situation, but if someone was like, can you pull a card for X without their consent, that personally feels icky. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, and I have a clip on this one too from TikTok where the gal was like, I won't read so-and-so if they're doing something, but I will read the relationship. So I typed in, what's the difference? She said, well, technically there is no difference, but that's how I get around it. So you're a hypocrite. And I didn't say, but that's just hypocritical.
Yeah.
And frankly, personally, just dishonest. You are reading.
Well, and let's talk about why a person is coming to you for a reading, and it's about their intention, right? If their intention is to come find out some information and you're able to tap into that energy and provide it, I feel like it's your duty to do that, or to give whatever the cards are telling you. So, I mean, that's just my own, whether that's third party, fifth party, whatever it is, it's the intention of the person you're reading for.
I completely agree. And that segues into this other one. I'm not going to say her name this time because I didn't screen record this, but I was in a live with someone who considers herself a medium and a psychic on TikTok. And she very, very hypocritical, incredibly like intellectually dishonest. And there's some cognitive dissonance even, right? Because she will literally say something as she's doing it. Like she'll say, oh, don't judge readers as she's judging a reader. Like she literally, I mean, I'm not sure how much more unaware you can be. Anyway, she said, oh, I was doing a psychic reading for a friend one time and I could see that something was going to happen and I didn't tell her. And I can't remember if it was like a car accident or her husband cheating, or I can't remember exactly the particulars. But she said specifically, I didn't tell her the information. So this friend comes back to this reader about 2 weeks later, and she was like, XYZ, but I'm surprised you didn't see that because I asked you about that when I got my reading. And the reader lady says, oh, I did see it. And the friend was
now
mad.
You're dishonest. Yeah, yes. Of course she's mad.
And the friend is mad.
Because you know why? She could have made decisions. She could have walked away from that reading and not done anything, and that would have been her own choice.
Yes.
But we were talking about decisions, right? And how we use divination as a tool. It is a gift that we developed. Everyone has the ability to do this. This is not unique. Every human has the ability to develop this. Some choose to, some choose not to. We've chosen to. And we deliver that information that they need. And that's your responsibility as someone.
As an adult.
Come to you. Yeah.
As an adult, it's their responsibility what they want to do with that information.
That's the
point.
Yeah.
And when like that is literally the point of being able to do this. So anyway, the reader, the woman in the live with me, right? And you guys can always DM me. I'll certainly tell you via DMs. But unless I have the actual screenshot and I can prove it, I don't want to put her name to it. Anyways, I was like, that's horrible. Like, why didn't you tell her? And because she let her own judgment come into the reading. And she said, well, I didn't think it was her business to know that. So you judge the information that, quote, spirit or the universe or God or whoever gave you, and you made an executive decision for someone else's life. And then when that information actually came to fruition, you threw your hands up and said, well, it wasn't up to me to tell you. If it wasn't up to you to tell her, the universe would have never given it to you.
That's right.
And the only time I draw the line on that is life or death.
Yeah.
The only time. Now, let's say you saw someone's death in 3 weeks in a car accident. You could always say, hey,
be really careful.
I do see some shenanigans with you in your car. In about 3 weeks' time, I want you to be really cognizant of that. But you don't tell them, I see you dying.
Don't text and drive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah. Be super careful, which is funny. Okay. So when I was a teenager,
it's about delivery.
Delivery. Every time. Yeah. Delivery. So when I was a teenager, in Atascadero, California, they have from Atascadero to San Luis Obispo, there's this thing called the grade. And it's like a 12% grade or something ridiculous. And my cousin drove a convertible VW Bug, right? And I have had dreams that come to fruition. And so this was way back in the day before I ever understood any of this, frankly. And I had a horrible dream about her literally like getting in a car accident and going off the side of this grade, which would have been dramatic, obviously, and back before they had all these beautiful guardrails that they have now. But in my dream, I think she even went over the guardrail. And I called her up like immediately back when we had rode, hey, Missy. And I was like, dude, I had this horrible dream. Now, obviously, I wouldn't say it this way today, but I was a teenager. I was like, I had this horrible dream, and you're freaking going over the grade, and you go off, and you just fly through the air, and you die in this, huge mushroom of explosion. And however I told her, that girl didn't drive over the grade for 3 months. But you know what? She's still here.
She's still here.
And
so that decision that she was able to make for herself,
exactly,
based upon a dream that you had, was something that could have saved her life.
Literally. I think it was.
Literally.
Yeah. I think it was, especially now knowing what I know now. Because one time I called my Aunt Anna, and my cousin Sam had come back from the Marines, but no one knew except for my aunt and her oldest daughter. Well, and obviously my cousin Sam, but this was back before cell phones, and we were never that close anyways. And I was talking to my aunt, and I was like, hey, why did Sam come home? I said, why did Sam? Because he was supposed to be in the Marines, and that's a whole nother story. And she was like, how could you possibly know that? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, the only one that knows are myself and my oldest cousin's name. And I was like, oh, so he is home? She's like, well, yes. So it was things like that would freak my family out.
Yeah.
Also, when I was 5, my mom was pregnant. Well, number one, when I was 3, I talked to some grandparent that passed away. But so I have also been doing it, but I didn't understand it. And that's what a lot of people's stories are like. When I was 5, my mother was pregnant, and I was like, oh, there's 2. There's, you're having 2 babies. She goes, no, honey, I'm just having 1 baby. And this was before sonograms were like 15 cents. You know what I mean? And so she hadn't had a sonogram, and the doctor, so this would have been 1973 and 74. And she says, no, I'm just having 1, honey, the doctor, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, you're having 2, 1 for me and 1 for you. And so I kept saying it and saying the whole pregnancy. Right. And so, December 18th, 1964, my brother and sister, who were twins, were born. 1 for me, 1 for you, right?
Yeah.
And Aunt Charlotta woke me up on the couch, and she's like, your mom had twins. And I was like, I know. Like, I've been telling you guys that for months. And so it was so.
And why are you listening to me?
I know that. Why are you waking me up? So it's so funny. But things like that have happened a lot. And so this goes back to the dysfunctional PTSD from childhood, where you are conditioned out of not listening to yourself. Because, for example, trauma, like when your mother is upset, but your mother refuses to admit she's upset and says, no, I'm fine. You start shutting down your ability to listen to yourself because you're like, well, I must be wrong.
Right.
And so go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, again, back to the third party, I just feel like that if the information is presenting itself, you have you should present the information, just like the you were talking about Missy and the going off the guardrail. I mean, that was a prophetic dream that you delivered, even not knowing. So if you don't deliver the information, there's responsibility on you, not that you are taking on yourself as a professional that should be delivering information.
You're making a judgment, Colin. It isn't
Yeah.
our place to judge.
No, the
I think,
information comes in and you
yeah,
deliver the information.
I think that's a bigger ethical issue than
Yeah.
all this third party garbage. And
Yeah.
so that's where her and I started to split ways, obviously, because I was like, I think that's horrible that you didn't tell a friend, no less. It wasn't even a paid reading. It was just she was reading for a friend. And so the friend and her, I guess, stopped being friends, which I completely understand because apparently it
Because
was
how could you trust them, buddy? Right?
right. How can I trust you if you're busy judging my life?
Right.
So I've read for cheaters. I've read for people
Mhm.
in poly relationships. I've read for
Yeah.
trans. I've read for gay. I've read for straight. I've read for straight guy that is actually gay, but nobody knows. I've read for cheaters, I guess, is the big one because people are like, well, I couldn't read for XYZ. Well, then you're not, in my opinion, you're not a real reader because you should be able to sit down and provide your assistance to literally, maybe not a serial killer, maybe not a pedophile. You know what I mean?
Well,
But that's being dramatic because how many pedophiles come to a reader?
I I think that I think the point is correct that we have a responsibility to deliver the information that has been presenting itself, whether that be third party or whatever. In my view, it's like giving the full perspective, the full view, so that somebody can make a decision. It's their point. It's on them to make the decision. I and it goes back to being underdeveloped, right? And some
I
of the
think
things
so.
that you teach in your class is the delivery of information and being able to deliver that in a way that people could move forward with making a decision.
I
Yeah,
have
I
another
just
good
think
story. I
the
have another good
wrong
story.
topic, right? With
I know.
they're
Well, people get fired up. I mean, people get super fired up. But number one, this was never an issue until the 2000s, until like I would say this issue started coming up probably about 6 years ago when everybody started, oh, you need consent for this and you need consent for that and you need consent for this. Here's my point. If you don't want your energy read because you're cheating on somebody, don't cheat on somebody. How about that? How about we put the
yeah.
onus on the person who's the bad actor? How about we put the onus on the person who's a dick? That's kind of like when people say, when people write memoirs, they're like, oh, you were really harsh on XYZ. Well, then XYZ should have been nicer to me in life. You know, if you
There's
don't
that.
want, yeah. Another thing is that remote viewing is always third party.
Mhm.
Um, what was the other one? Mediumship technically is third party
Yeah.
because you're getting information about people that don't necessarily aren't there. So there was this other gal, she sat in my circle. I did a mediumship circle for about 2 years. Just it was for free. It was these other mediums that I was coming up with. I hosted this circle. We all kind of would either read for each other or we would bring people in to read XYZ. And one gal was in there for about a year, maybe a year and a half. She came in on the word of someone else. And so I thought we were friends. And so I get on TikTok, and this story is also in the TikTok series.
Mhm.
So I get on TikTok, and this Megan Elisa drags the shit out of me for, quote, third party reading, calls me unethical, brings my teachers' names up, the whole 9 yards. And you guys can go back and find that in the TikTok series if you want to. Anyway, Nick, who had been at my circle, she starts supporting Megan Alyssa on TikTok. Now, this is extremely negative in my book because I've put forward energy thinking that we were friends. And so this is horribly negative to me. She never talked to me. She never texted me. She never emailed me. Again, we'd been weekly for a year
Yeah. In
interacting.
the same space, sharing
Yeah.
energy. Yeah.
So then she goes and uploads. She's trying to pat herself on the back, which is fine, because when we have exciting, wonderful readings, I think it's okay to pat ourselves on the back. I think it's part of the process. So she uploads this testimonial that says she uncovered a family secret. So what she'd done is she had a sitter, let's say, so she had this woman, right? This is the sitter. And Nick is reading for the sitter, and she brings through information that went around the sitter to the husband's family, and they had to go to the husband's mother, so her mother-in-law, to validate this third-party family secret. And so I get on TikTok, I'm like, dude, that is literally the explanation of a third-party reading,
which you were supporting.
Yeah, which you literally say you don't do, and that anyone that does is unethical and a piece of shit. So she fires back, that's not what this is. Validating third-party information is not a third-party reading. I'm like, was the mother-in-law there? No. Was the husband there? No.
Did she give you permission?
Right. Do you have permission slips? So that is literally the definition, the epitome of a third-party reading.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you expose something that maybe they didn't want someone else to know. How do you know what I mean? And the fact that you went around the sitter to the husband's family, to the mother-in-law, who had to validate from spirit this family secret while you're patting yourself on the back, you were literally and figuratively defining
and being a hypocrite about it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest, right? That's the part of you are pointing the finger at me, but have like three pointing back at you because you did exactly the same thing.
And that's that cognitive dissonance where you're literally putting something down and doing it at the same time, and you don't even realize it because you aren't willing to be intellectually honest that you might be wrong.
Yeah, these are big red flags. I mean,
well, she blocked me.
Big red flag. Well,
she blocked me.
That's okay, because honestly, they're people that haven't matured in their gift. They're not mature in their craft, right? So
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So getting back to it, the other one is Psychic Sean. He was bragging about reading for someone, and he told her something about her relationship. And he's also one that dragged me for third-party reading. And that was if you are reading about someone's relationship and you tell them something they didn't know about the other party, that is a third-party reading. So I'm going to drop TikTok because I'm still bitter. The point being, if you aren't reading third-party, if you aren't reading the situation in its entirety, in my opinion, that's unethical because you are getting a one-sided story. And obviously, you're getting the side of the person who might be the problem.
Yeah.
Because I have had people who were the problem. So for example, I read a relationship one time, and as I'm reading it, I'm absolutely bringing in all the parties. I'm like, I welcome everybody in this situation to come in and give their 2 cents. Right.
Yeah.
And I looked at her at one point and I was like, you're the problem. He's not cheating. You're the problem. And she's like, oh, well, yeah. Not that she was cheating, but she was the drama. She was the one living in fear. She was the one going to a million different psychics to hear what she wanted to hear in order to validate some
crazy fear or delusion. Yeah.
And so we really broke it down, and I'm like, no, you are the drama. And so had I not welcomed
I the drama,
right? But had I not welcomed everyone's energy, would I have gotten to the same answer?
No.
I was only listening to her side of this energetic story. I would not have gotten to the same answer because she wasn't going to volunteer that she was the drama, or she would have opened with that, Yeah. All right. So let's see what else. There was somebody's answer in here that I really want. Oh, and then of course I got blocked by people, because they don't want to have conversations.
Honestly, people ferret themselves out of our experience. And I think that's a good thing. Let them block all day long, because they just show their true colors. They're not willing to be open. They're not willing to listen to others' perspective in real life, or, like in this physical experience and in spiritual realm.
I agree. So here's this gal on Facebook named Penny. She agreed with me, and she says, we call them gatekeepers. It's a way for some to feel moral superiority. It's nonsense. Read what you will. If the energy is off limits to you, the cards will be ambivalent. If a person is in your sphere of energy, they are your business. I've been saying that for years.
I agree.
I gotta go
She's
on.
100% correct.
Ethically, energy is shared and influential to people who are connected to it. So reading the energy around a person in a particular situation is not invasive. It is simply a map of the energy and what it encompasses. If there is something the client is not supposed to see, the universe will serve up ambivalence.
I agree 100%. Now that is a mature person who has done lots of energy reading and work coming through with that concept, not these gatekeepers who are throwing shade at people who are reading an entire situation. So
absolutely,
again, it comes down to maturity and
absolutely. And I wanted to give her credit for saying it that way, because it was very well said. And so and I completely agree, and I've been saying the same thing, but maybe just not quite as eloquently. So this person this person says, imagine yourself in the situation of the third party. Your partner breaks up with you, telling you he knows you were cheating because a tarot reader told him so. How will you trust him? How will you trust him to believe you if you were faithful? Well, it wasn't written very well, but we get the gist of it. So number one, again, it's delivery, because my response was, most of the time the sitter already knows and is looking for third-party validation. They're looking to not feel crazy. And number two, you don't report the information in absolutes, but you can plant the seed that there is some toxicity and or dishonesty. And number three, if it is important enough for the sitter to ask, who are you to judge the sitter?
Right. 100%.
So back in the day when I was being cheated on, I would have loved for someone to have told me just straight up, straight to my face, you already know this. You feel it, you're not listening to yourself, you're being gaslit, etc., etc. But it's always in the delivery. I've never come right out and told someone so-and-so is cheating on you. What I will say is, I do feel like either someone has cheated in the past, or maybe is currently cheated, or you're living in a fear of being cheated on. Which one of those resonates with you more? Right? And then they have some autonomy in the feedback and in the situation. Because I've actually been told, when I've given it that way, I've literally sat across from somebody who goes, I'm doing the cheating. Okay, well, let's go there, right?
Let's talk about it, right?
Or I've been told, I think my other significant other is cheating. Okay, let's go there. Or I was really affected, or the other person was really affected by cheating in the past, and I think it's a fear. So it's in your delivery. And so if someone is sitting across from you and it is important enough for them to swallow their pride and say, I think someone is cheating on me, can we ask that? Absolutely. Absolutely. That is exactly what we're going to ask. Now, if someone says, if they've worded it in a way to take responsibility for something they aren't doing, I will also go there and say, now, why would it be your responsibility if someone else is cheating? And then I'll bring it back around to their self-worth. But if someone is sitting across from you and they, again, these are very personal, private things, and they've taken the time and the energy to ask you a question like that, who am I to tell another grown adult that this is not important enough, or that they're unethical for wanting to know this? That's asinine.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely is. So, again, it goes back to our responsibility to deliver the information in a non-judgmental, and deliver it in such a way that it doesn't damage somebody's psyche. I mean, you can say things, there's so many ways to deliver information that allows the sitter to to receive it, right?
Absolutely. Here's a fun story. So there's this couple sat down. I was just doing fun. I was at an event. It was like, I don't know, $20 for $10 or 10 minutes for $20. I had just started doing events. And this couple sits across from me. And the man had brought her in for this reading. And we're doing this reading, and she is just eyeballing me the whole time, man. She's just like,
Worried.
oh, yes. But I didn't realize that at first. I thought she didn't believe it. Then I was like, you're not, oh, you do believe this, and you're afraid I'm going to call you out. And so I didn't quite say it that way, but that was kind of the gist of it. He wanted to know why she hadn't told her kids they were in a relationship, because she lived in, well, they lived about 5 hours apart. And I started pulling cards, and he brought up the ex-husband, and I'm still pulling cards, and we're having feedback, and we're doing this. She was still boinking the ex. And that's why she hasn't told the kids, because she's still in a relationship with the ex, but traveling 5 hours to see this guy. And he thinks they're in a relationship, but they're not really, right? And she's just throwing me daggers the whole time. And she's only sitting across from the table. I mean, she's close enough to hit me. And I'm sitting there thinking, how can I put this in a way? And so finally, because she's not giving any feedback, and she's not like, obviously she's not participating like he is. So finally I looked at him and I said, you know what? There's some real dishonesty in this relationship between the two of you. And that's what you need to decide what it is. So I didn't technically come right out and say she's cheating, right? But I led him far enough along the path, hopefully, that he can pick up on the fact.
No, I mean, I think that's beautiful that you called out the dishonesty, because that's where, when somebody isn't, no matter what the dishonesty is, whether it be cheating or, whatever, you still allow them to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and honestly, she looked crazy. So I didn't want to I was like, I don't want to have a throwdown right here in the middle of this event. I would have. No, just kidding. Anyway.
Well, and that's just another way to be able to deliver the information that you have in a not in your face, very respectful way. Because those are hard messages to deliver. Sometimes you got to deliver the hard messages.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was very interesting. And honestly, just her not participating and staring me down, it just kind of triggered me a little bit, I guess. And I was like, all right, well, we're just going to call it for what it is then. So that brings up another situation. So there was someone, so again, on these things on Facebook, a gal had gotten into a situation where she was almost raped by someone she considered a friend, right? And she's not getting past it. And so someone posted, how can I help her get past this? It was in Past Life forum or something. Oh. And someone, of course, brought up, oh, well, she needs to forgive this person and move on. Now, in my opinion, another hot button, I don't think she needs to forgive anyone. And so this is what I said. I said she's allowed to be angry and take her time. And honestly, I'm not sure if this is your place to help her, but I would tell her to go back, mentally in a meditation, however you want to say it, and forgive herself for being in that situation. And then this other person says, why would she have to forgive herself for being assaulted? That's crazy. So my response to that is because as a victim, we shame ourselves very often. And that shame is then compounded by others telling us to forgive the abuser.
So basically what you're saying is that there is an energetic tie to that past experience that you're wanting to sever. You're wanting to release that between the victim and the abuser, and it's not forgiveness. How can you forgive something like that? I mean, that's not my place to tell her or help her to forgive that. But what you could do is help her release that energy so that they're not bound to each other through this energetic highway, right? That's kind of how I see that information. And it's
but
exactly
also,
the same
but
as
also, when we've been a victim or when we've been party to some shenanigans, hell, maybe it was our idea, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to forgive we have to go back and say, for example, for me, dysfunctional childhood again, I went back to my younger self and I let her know, hey, by the way, you're going to make it. you
You're
know.
going
And
to be fine.
I have a meditation on my Facebook if anybody's interested in sitting down and kind of walking themselves through this. But I went back and I told my younger self, it's okay. And if forgive is even the right word, but I forgive myself for being in a situation I had no control over. As a child, you have no control. You can't just pack up and leave. I mean, you can, but then probably sex trafficking or, you're working the streets for the rest of your life. So I went back and I was kind, if you will, to my own younger self, letting her know that not only do we make it, but we're still alive at, 50-ish,
Yeah.
and you're going to be okay. So we need to forgive ourselves for,
Mhm.
but later, like I was in a situation as an
There's
18.
real power in that
Yes.
releasing of the guilt, right? Because even as a child who's been sexually victimized or domestic violence, you do blame yourself.
Absolutely.
Had I not done this, had I done something different, it would have been a different result. And the act of releasing that energy and in forgiving, whatever you want to call it, it literally is saying, I'm okay, right? And you make it through this. That energetic tide is broken and you no
Yes.
longer feed it.
Yes.
There's real
Absolutely.
power in it, real
So
power.
much. And then also, let's say that you put yourself in this situation. As an 18-year-old, I was at a college party. It went south very quickly. I blamed myself. Um,
Mhm.
I can go back to my 18-year-old self and say, hey, it's okay. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You were naive or gullible or just stupid, you know. And then again, I love the way you put that. It releases that energetic cord, it releases that energetic hold that event had on you.
And then
So in
tied to
my
the memory, right? Because we can feed the energetic memory that happens with that through reliving and recalling and all of that. It continues that victimization
Yes.
on well through. It's why my theory is when I look at it, something can happen to you younger in life and you pack that away, and then all of a sudden when you're 45, 50, that memory comes to life and that energy is shared again.
Yes.
You have to sever that energetic, you know, information coming back and forth. And that part
Yes.
of that is doing exactly what you said, which is
Absolutely.
going back to your younger self, going back to that time and saying, you don't have to hold on to that guilt anymore. That's not yours to hold on to. Release it, give it back to where it goes, right?
I'll try to remember to put a link in the notes for a link to that.
Yeah.
It's a very short, I think it was 8 or 10 minutes, kind of walked through meditation
Mm-hmm.
that you can do. I think we did it in class one time. Um, and we got off topic again, of course. So what did we come into this talking about? Was it
It's third party.
third party?
Third party. But
Right.
that is about the third party, right? So we're talking about the other side of that, which is the younger self and forgiveness of do we tap into that energy? Can we tap into that energy? And what does that mean? So it
That's a
kind
good
of
point.
sort of got off topic, but
Yeah, but it does. Yeah, you're right. It does tie into that. So the gist of it, and this one is going to be probably a little shorter than some of the other, let's talk about it. The gist of it is if you want self-imposed rules on the way you read and how you read, by all means, impose your own rules. It is an extra step that is not necessary. It is, in my opinion, kind of part of the generation that is determined to put rules and labels on others,
everything.
on everything, which is ironic because I feel like the roles have changed so much in different aspects, and I don't get into politics in my business, right? But I will say that, like, I don't have those rules because I don't need those rules. I know where to draw the line.
Yeah.
I know how to deliver the information. I know how to be discerning. I know how to be mature. And so I don't need those crutches. I feel like some of these rules are crutches. I feel like some of these rules are just high horses and soapboxes for other people to feel superior. Go back and re-listen to that message I read from Penny off of Facebook. She said it extremely well. It's ego.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's
Absolutely.
the negative side of ego. Let me put it that way, because we have negative and positives to egos as well, of course. And so to me, it's ego. And then trying to chastise someone or drag them through the mud because they choose to do it is judgment and ego. Like,
Yeah, that's it to me just shows the immaturity
yeah,
of the individual. And it is a red flag. So people do need to pay attention to how they treat other people in you know, this dragging business or whatever is kind of crazy. So
it is. And it's one of the more negative aspects of TikTok. And I did it
TikTok.
myself, and I did it myself because you're trying to call out people like the Paranormal Emporium who is completely, yeah, I mean, and I don't even feel bad saying that he's a complete shyster.
He's a spoof. Like
Yeah, there's an
yeah,
actual Facebook group with about him being a shyster, and people that used to work for him are in that group. So I don't even feel like there's a lot of receipts coming, for this
yeah,
guy. But and so I wouldn't say I dragged him, but I used his content to show why it was just completely bogus. And so
absolutely.
right. And so I will point out when things that are in my opinion are wrong. And then if
Yeah.
people want to believe otherwise, obviously we're all on our own path. I mean, there's we could still be friends. It's kind of like the soul contracts. I think you believe in them a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
And see, I don't.
Too, but not to the same way that, um, not to the same way that it is written in stone. I think it is I think agreements can be made, but it's not something that I look at it a little differently than a lot of the other people do.
I like the term blueprints. I do like that term. That we have kind of a blueprint for
Being
coming
in
in.
and being an astrologer is kind of where I get that
Oh yeah.
viewpoint from, as far as the contract or blueprint. It's kind of the set that you come in with, but you have the ability as a sovereign being to make different decisions. So while you might come in with, X, Y, and Z blueprints, planets in houses, whatever it may be, you still have the choice to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we'll get into that on a different one, a different day.
Yeah. We'll get into soul contracts and how those soul contracts can be broken.
We need someone who's willing. So if anyone's willing, if anybody's very into soul contracts and just believes it 100%, feel free to send me an email or DM me or leave something in the comments, because I would love to bring someone in who completely believes in them.
Yeah.
And fair warning, the first question I'm going to ask that person is, what about kids who are sex trafficked? Because you just cannot tell me that someone sat on the other side in their life between lives, which is what, there's even a book called That Life Between Lives or something like that. And that they sat down and said, I hope I can be, used and abused by 50 men a day from the ages of 3 to 7 years old. And then I could die of a drug-induced overdose in Thailand.
Yeah.
I mean,
and see, I look at it from a different perspective in that I agree with that. And some people do firmly believe that people come here and make a contract to have certain experiences. And I think that the energy of maybe meeting in life, or a connection that you might have had, a recognized connection from a past life happens. But I'm not sure that I believe, and I don't believe that people come in to be abused.
So
I don't know. I'm willing to open the door and step in and try to convince me otherwise. I don't know, or convince me that way I think is wrong. So
Absolutely. So I'm going to read something. First of all, I forgot Penny had another comment that she made on this Facebook whole thing. It says, I have been reading for this goes back to third party. I have been reading for the past 40 years. These gatekeepers are somewhat new phenomenon. It's ridiculous action implemented by judgmental and controlling people. And in fact, the act of gatekeeping itself is an invasion of autonomy. The gatekeepers are actually the bullies, voyeurs, pushing their will onto others. They should stick to their own business and stop trying to manipulate others' techniques. I find most of them novices and not particularly adept. Shallow people who try to impose their will upon others. I'm embarrassed for them. No one has the right to pass judgment on anyone's practice. It shows a lack of depth and understanding. These people should stop assuming others' ethics are lacking simply because they don't march to the same drumbeat.
yeah, very true.
But said so well. And I mean, honestly, sometimes you can write things a lot better than you can
communicate. Yeah.
Yeah. And then hold on. Oh, sorry. Let me try to and then of course that whole thread was deleted. There was someone in here about the soul contract thing. Hold on. Oh, darn it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So darn it. All right, I can't find it, so I'm going to paraphrase. These people are saying that a soul contract is not only about you, it's about them and the relationship. It's about both the soul, individual, and collective. If they did not learn the lesson, there will be others who will come to give them the lesson. You move on. Sometimes the soul contract is not resolved and people die. They incarnate with unresolved karmic issues, which is the unresolved contract. So what do you have to do? Learn the lesson, heal yourself, integrate. But here's my thing. Then it would just be a constant cycle. Because if I'm here to teach you a karmic lesson, I have now created karma for myself. Let's say you and I are in a relationship and I'm treating you horribly because, quote, you're dealing with stuff from your past life. Well, now I'm creating karma for myself that I then have to come back and deal with it in my next life. Like when would this cycle ever end? It never would. And it's just an asinine idea. And I think Dolores Cannon adds a lot to this toxic positivity and this toxic idea that, you made your bed, you got to lie in it. And it's also why I hear a lot of people going, well, should I stay in this relationship then? Because I don't want to come back in my next life and have to do it again. And so you've got people who are listening to this stuff, who are living real human lives right now in abusive relationships saying, well, it must be my karma that I have to stay in this relationship and deal with this abuse because otherwise I'll just have to come back and do it again. I mean, I've literally read that and I'm like, no.
And that just
and spirit knows so bad.
I agree with that because then you are saying I'm not a sovereign being, right? I don't have the ability. Now I do believe for me again, because I'm an astrologer and I do look at the planets and how energies are available to you to use. I think that we come in with certain energies that we can work with, and
so that is our circles. Like I do believe in soul circles. I do believe that, for example, and I've said this one before, when my oldest daughter was 4 or 5, and really fast, anybody that says I'm not doing drugs, spirit knows is when for some reason when spirit's around, my nose itches.
Yeah.
It drives me batshit crazy, and you can watch me almost any time, and it happens a lot. Also, maybe it's just because I'm talking so much, but when my oldest daughter was 4 or 5, I gave her a swat on the ass, right? A spanking, a good old fashioned little, don't do that. And she cried and she looked at me and she was like, I didn't treat you like that when I was the mother. And I was like, whoa. So I've always believed in reincarnation, but that really kind of solidified it for me. I would like to say she never got another spanking. I don't think she did. I think that really stopped me in my tracks, to be quite honest. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing a good job, right? I need to do better. And so it really did stop me in my tracks. But it also shows me that the soul circle is real, right? When we try out the different whatevers. However, I don't think that we say, I want to sign up for, 50 years of being gaslit and abused and emotionally abused and emotionally neglected and cheated on and lied to and lied about. And, I want to be,
Well, that's the great thing about being human and having the human experience, is that we get to choose at every moment what the next moment is, right?
and
That's
that's the
why,
other thing. That's the other thing. If we have free will, then we can't have a contract. Those two can't live together. It's like saying, for example, you have a contract on your house. You could stop paying for your mortgage, but then you lose the house.
yeah,
So people are like, well, you can change the contract at any time. Then it isn't a contract.
yeah. So maybe the word contract
It
is the
triggers me.
issue.
It
Yeah.
triggers me.
So so when you say contract, locked in, can never be broken, right? Something that
Yeah.
goes into default if you are making another choice. So I think maybe we need to relook at what that actually is within that soul circle, the energies that are available for people to make decisions. And sometimes just people making decisions for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about, is that I didn't make that choice as a
Yeah.
child. Somebody made that choice for me. And that, that you just don't have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the other thing. Someone who is in this lifetime medically challenged, if you are, or if you're stuck in a body without the ability to walk away or even communicate. I do nonverbal communication as well, which is talking to autistic people, dementia, coma, Alzheimer's. And one of the conversations I had, which is actually on YouTube, and again, language warning because I have a potty mouth. And her name is Jocelyn, and she has Rett syndrome, and she's had Rett syndrome, and she was verbal until she hit 2 years old, and she ended up with Rett syndrome. She became nonverbal, and then she became, for lack of a better word, trapped in a human body. And she's still very smart and very sarcastic, very sarcastic. And so she lives in a wheelchair, and I facilitated a conversation between her and her mother is an old friend of mine. And or still a friend. So how would I put that? Being able to communicate with her at its lowest common denominator, energy reading, is telepathy, which people have been doing and people still do. People who work with handicapped children do it daily. Some realize it, some don't. People who work with Alzheimer's patients do it daily, whether they realize it or they don't realize it. People who have animals and or deal with animals do it all the time, and they may not realize it, or they just may not trust it. And so, where was I going? Damn it, I hate it when that happens.
Oh, well, we were talking about soul contracts and
Oh,
people not agreeing
yes.
to the contract piece of that.
Yes. And so to me, I don't think that was something that she decided on the other side. Someone else had said on here, oh, what you do is you sit down and you get to see your whole life from beginning to end, and then you can choose to go into it or not. And I'm like, no, no, no. There's no friggin' way
Nobody
that
would ever do that.
exactly. It's the dumbest idea in the world.
That's
That's
literally
like,
saying like we're like a robot.
yeah, exactly. Or NPCs in a video game. And it completely shits on the idea of free will. And it shits on the idea that you can change your life at any time. We're either sovereign or we aren't. And so when you have someone like Jocelyn who is stuck in a literal body that she has no control over, there's no way to me that she made that soul contract. I think life gets in the way. I think it's a roll of the dice. I think it's more chaotic than that. I think it's very much, and there's too many players. There's too many
Yeah.
players in 50 years of living so far, and I'm knock on wood that I'm going to be 110 before I go. There's too many players that you would have to sit down with and make these arrangements with, you know? So I don't buy it. And no one ever answers this question. Nobody ever answers the question. If people make soul contracts, then why would we have children in sex trafficking? Why would we have victims of serial killers? Why would we have serial killers? Why
Right.
why would we have the worst of the worst? Do you think Adolf Hitler sat in his life between lives and said, I want to kill millions and millions of fellow human beings? If we're all about love and light on the other side, who would sit there and do that? So anyways, I'm rambling.
Well, that, and just the call for somebody that firmly believes in that, and that's why you're kicking off the series. Let's talk about it, because let's talk about those beliefs. Let's talk about just what you said. So again, anybody that is a firm believer in the soul contract, hop on in.
And I will, and I'm willing to listen. Yeah. I doubt at this point that someone's going to change my mind, but it's okay to give airtime. And obviously this channel is just now starting out. It's just now growing. YouTube is more of a long game. It's not TikTok. It is you have to put the work and the time. And so, these will live on for years, basically, as opposed to the shorts that disappear after a few days. So these are conversations that if you firmly believe, or Akashic Records, because I'm not a big
yeah, my view on Akashic is it is literally your astrology. So the energy of
that's right. I remember.
Yeah.
Make a note. Let's not forget to talk about that. And that is another way that I think that some people in this industry con people, and we've talked about this before, is that they know astrology to the point. The Bielski experience does this. She did this with Dustin the Mentalist, which is somewhere on my thing. She asked him for his birthday. She said,
and then you automatically know.
Dang. And I don't know astrology. I don't know dick about astrology, except that
you can lead a conversation based upon that. Yeah.
You can do a whole reading based upon that, because we're not as unique as we would hope that we are. And for one reason or another, and I do not understand it, and I give Tara all the props here. I do not understand astrology. And she's told me things that I'm like, okay, all right. That, because once you know certain things about astrology, you know certain things about a person, period. And people that don't believe that are kind of deluding themselves, because over and over and over and over again. So anyway, she asked for Dustin's birthday, and he's like, I don't think I should give you that. And then she tried to guess his signs, like his birth sign, and then sun sign, and then rising sign, or whatever. I don't even think I'm saying it right. What are the three?
Oh, your sun sign, your rising sign, and your moon sign.
Moon sign. Okay. And
the major three, the big three. Yeah.
The big three. And then she guessed what his three were, and she was wrong on all three of them. And so that is another part of kind of the fishing that people will do, and the cold reading that people will do, is if they know astrology to the nth detail, they can literally play off of that and do that. And that is one of the things that she has on her intake form. What's your birthday?
Yeah, people's astrology, while some of it is very, like the three that you were talking about, astrology though is can be dangerous in that everyone's astrology is unique. No one is, it's like a fingerprint. It's different based upon just the
unique to a certain degree, right? Because you're going to have certain aspects of Virgo rising, for example, that are kind of apply to obviously more than one person.
Yeah.
And that's why in astrology, you can literally kind of riff off of that information.
Yes.
Right. I remember watching another one of the Bielski's things that she had on YouTube, and it mentioned the woman's obit. And I was like, all right. I have never once, first of all, I never get a first and last name, hardly ever. So there's no way for me to Google people. And when I used to do it on TikTok Live, or when I do it on YouTube Live, it doesn't even have to be your real name, frankly. It just has to be that energy that I'm connecting with. So she gets a first and last name, she gets a photo, she gets a birthday, and then I think she gets a relationship. I'd have to look that one up again. But with all of that, that's a lot of information.
That's a lot of information for you to find out about somebody.
Yeah. And as you know, Tara, when we're in class, we will do dial it up, and we will do a name or a relationship. But that's it. That's as far as it goes. Now with animals, I will get a breed, name, and then a sex, because animals are a little different going in. A little different going
A
in.
little different energy signature.
Right. Right. And that's something that you hadn't been real experienced in, that you're enjoying, I believe.
I'm learning about the animal communication, different communication with like plants. Plants do have life force, they do have that life energy, and they all feel a little different. And so that's been really fun.
The vibration and the frequency and the
Mm-hmm.
different energies. All
And
right.
of
Well, we better
course,
wrap it
learning
up.
about delivery. Okay,
I'm
cool.
sorry. I'm sorry. Did
No,
I?
I was saying, and of course, learning about that delivery. So that's been
Yeah,
really key for me.
absolutely. And I realized that I don't think I'm the plant killer. I think for years and years and years, I would bring plants into my house and they would die. And I just thought, God, I do not have a green thumb. I do not have a green thumb. And it dawned on me the other day, finally, and I'm sure it was spirit, because again, I don't know if I even have my own individual thoughts anymore, because he's download. Oh my God, my nose. So I swear to God, spirit comes in and my nose just. So one of the things, unfortunately, with body language is that liars will do this. And so they say,
Um,
yeah. And so they say people who are psychic or mediums that do this are liars. But that's not true. Number one, I do this when I eat too much salt. I do this when I get around alfalfa. I do this when spirit comes in. I do this when I talk too much. I don't know if it's the vibration. I don't know if my nose is sensitive or whatever.
yeah.
But anyway, where was I going? Damn it.
Now you got me.
I guess it wasn't
It was
important.
good,
I know it
but
was going to be good. It was going to be good. Oh, well, that's all right. I've talked enough for one episode, if you will. I guess we'll have to call them episodes. We're gonna,
episodes, yeah,
we're
that'd
gonna
be
have
fun.
to we're gonna have to be bougie. We're gonna be
Bougie.
conversationalists. All
Cool.
right. Well, thank you for being here again. If anyone is interested in coming on to talk about soul contracts, you need to believe in them 155%, 24/7. And I will be polite and I will listen. This is how I talk all the time. What you see is what you get, or well, maybe not all the time, but you get my point. Usually I cuss a lot more. What else? If you have things that you do want us to talk about, or if you want to come on and talk about whatever, let us know. Tara won't always be here, but I've actually had fun. This has been good. It's
Yeah,
a
it's been a blast.
great way to start this series off, if you will. So maybe she will. I don't know.
Who knows?
Day by day, right? Day by day.
Exactly. Take it how it goes.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you for being here, Tara, and we will see you
Okay.
guys all later.